Hello and welcome to Let's Talk Sport. And we have got our live show of the World Cup. Of course, who'd have thought we're nearly into the end of the third week of World Cup 2022 in Qatar. A lot has happened, a lot of goals, a lot of action, a lot of memorable moments, and we are now down to the final eight for the quarterfinals. And of course, the semis are next week. Then the final itself is a week on Sunday at Lusail Stadium in Doha. I'm Jamie Davies, and I'm delighted to be joined by Joe Stanley. Joe, how you doing, my friend? The good thing is England are still in the World Cup, but it feels like there's still a lot to do if we're gonna at all have Gareth claws to bring it home for Christmas.
Thanks, Aaron. I'm not too bad myself. I hope you're doing well yourself. Yeah, it's good to see England still in the World Cup. A lot of people expect them to go out early doors, especially with the Nations League form. But they've done all right actually this World Cup, haven't they? For once, they've done
Mm.
quite well. They've exceeded the expectations. I know, obviously, they got to the semi-finals in Russia 4 years ago, but that was a different squad of players. It's a different squad this time round, and they went into the last World Cup with good form on the Nations League. They've gone into this one with poor form going into it, but they've just seemed to have turned it on at the major tournament. Southgate just seems to have the magic at the moment when it comes to major tournaments, and hopefully, fingers crossed, he can work some more magic on Saturday against France, and you never know, semi-final against Portugal or Morocco, and then we could be seeing your May coming home. I mean, Jules May coming home. Sorry, the World Cup trophy.
Who knows? Who knows? I mean, we'll talk more about England in just a bit. But Joe, before we go into our previews of the quarterfinals and share our predictions, what's been your favourite moment so far? What have you enjoyed the most? Who's shocked you? Maybe stuff like that. What kind of anything you want to add?
Oh, that's a question. There's been quite a few shocks, hasn't there? Because obviously Argentina lost their opening game against Saudi Arabia. Nobody saw that coming. If they
No,
win this tournament, they'll be the second team to lose their opening game and then win the tournament. I think Japan beating Germany, that's another shock. And the Germans going out in the group stage for the second successive World Cup, another
Spain
big
as
one
well,
there.
losing to
Spain
Japan.
going out.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then Spain going out to Morocco on penalties and
yeah. Mm.
couldn't even score a spot kick. I tell you
No,
what, Hakimi, nerves of steel.
uh,
Nerves of
uh,
steel over that
the
last one.
do we not call it the Panenka anymore? Do we call it the Penguin or whatever that dance was at the end when he celebrated? Funny enough, I read before we went on air that him and Sergio Ramos at PSG, Sergio Ramos didn't get picked for Spain. And ever since Enrique's been manager of Spain, he doesn't pick a Real Madrid player or former Real Madrid player, maybe. But apparently, Ramos and Hakimi did that dance when they were together at PSG. So I wonder if there's something against Enrique there, because Hakimi was born in Madrid as well. So I don't know. But it was, yeah, I think that was probably the highlight of the last 16, wasn't it? Morocco beating Spain, and who knows if Morocco. We'll talk about them in a bit. But anyway, we'll tell you what. Before we talk about the teams that are remaining, let's talk about the first game. It all starts tomorrow. So there's two games tomorrow on Friday and then two on Saturday. And then we'll know after Saturday night who will play in the semi-finals on Tuesday and Wednesday night in Lusail and the Al Bat Stadium. So let's start off with, well, Joe's got a bit of a personal favourite in this one because he's got them in the Let's Talk Sport sweepstake, and that is Croatia versus Brazil. Joe I'm surprised he's not wearing his Brazil shirt right now. But maybe it's because he ordered Firmino on the back and then he didn't get picked. This is a true story. He can't hide from that. But
I'll
it's
see if I can grab it.
oh, he's gonna look for it. Give us a moment.
Didn't take me long, did it?
No, we found it. I honestly thought you'd have had it in the bin by now. There it is.
Oh, there we are. That's the nice little collar in there.
More importantly, show the back.
Let me
Yeah,
know.
I do like that shirt. I'm a big fan of that shirt. Um, Probably one of the best Brazil shirts we've seen in a while, actually. And the little
What?
button. Yeah, I'll show the button with the flag. Is it? Yeah, it's got a flag, hasn't it? Yeah, it's clever that. I like that. I love little things like that. The Brazilian flag on the shirt there. But Joe, big one this really. Croatia versus Brazil. We've got the 2018 finalists. up against the potential winners, well, the tournament favourites. Croatia, in my eyes, Joe, not great. Got the win against Japan at the end because of penalties, but they did this at the last World Cup where some of their knockout games were not the best, but they still came out on top to reach that final. While Brazil, well, it was like the equivalent of Harlem Globetrotters the other night against South Korea. Richarlison leading the line with some breathtaking goals.
Yeah, last time obviously, like you said, Croatia's great through in the games in the last tournament, and obviously I think it was Russia they beat in the quarterfinal, wasn't it, on penalty after 2-2 draw, and then
yeah,
they beat England in extra time.
Painfully. Beat Denmark as well, I think, on penalties.
I think they did as well. Yeah, you're correct. In the last 16, I want to say. And then
I think you're right.
Obviously, Brazil the other night were sensational. Took the foot off the gas a little bit in the second half. I think that's just more about reserving those energy levels. 4-0 at half time. The game was done. There was no way, with all due respect to South Korea, there was no way they were coming back against an opposition like Brazil. And Richarlison, as much as it pains me to say, he's having a cracking tournament. He's one of those players that I don't like his attitude. He's a quality. He could be a quality player. Don't get me wrong. It's his attitude that just lets him down at times. But this tournament, he's had R9 vibes, hasn't he? He's been able to score all sorts of goals.
I think, that goal between him, Marquinhos, I can't remember who set up the goal, but, when Richarlison started it with, he kept heading the ball in the air, then he brought it down to his feet, passed it to Marquinhos. I can't remember who Marquinhos passed it to, then it was...
Silva, I think, played him in.
Yes, you're right, Thiago Silva. See, they were that high up, weren't they? The two main centre-backs for Brazil. They go and do that, and then Richarlison threw on goal. I couldn't believe it. I literally nearly dropped my can of beer that I was drinking. I was literally just like, oh my God, that was a goal. Absolutely beautiful to watch. But I don't know about you, Joe. This is, in my eyes, this is the best Brazil team I've seen at a World Cup since they probably won the World Cup 20 years ago. I just feel like Brazil teams we've seen in the past at the World Cup where they're okay, but they're not like this.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of chatter that they weren't performing well enough when people, in the group games, because obviously they got 1-1 against Switzerland, and they obviously lost the last group game, but that was basically they played their reserves in the last game because they've already qualified, so it didn't really matter. And I'm sort of thinking, if you can win games of football without having to go into that second or third gear, it shows the quality of the side that you've got. And that's what's happening with Brazil. They're getting the results without having to go up through the gears. And that's a sign of a world champion, in my book. I don't want to jinx it, obviously, because I want to win that sweepstake. But I think the fact that they're going and getting these results, they're scoring goals, they're not actually really having to go, like I said, through those gears. They're not having to put too much energy into the football. I think it's a good sign for Brazil. And even if, say, they don't win it this World Cup, surely it puts them in good stead for the next Copa America and the next World Cup after that. They've got quality goalkeeping, Alisson. I know I've got a little bit of Liverpool bias there, but if you think about it, they've got Alisson and Edson as the first and second choice. Either way, quality goalkeeper in goal. They've got the experience across the back four as well. The midfield is good. It's quite youthful in the midfield area as well. And then you look at the strength and depth in the forward areas. Okay, they lost Gabriel Jesus early on for injury, but Richarlison's been playing as a starting forward anyway, scoring goals. You got the likes of Rafinha, and then if he's not playing, you've got Anthony that can come in that position. Midfield, like as I was saying, Casemiro is quality. Well, I was gutted when United signed him early on the season because even though he's getting on in his early 30s, he's still got plenty of years left in the tank, and he's got all that experience at international and club level. And then you got the youthfulness of Lucas Paqueta in the midfield as well, who he's had a good tournament, to be honest. And I think West Ham needs to be utilising him more in the Premier League, but the Premier League's the Premier League, and this is all about the World Cup.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for Croatia, you've got Luka Modric probably playing in his last World Cup, the last World Cup Golden Ball man who, of course, won the Ballon d'Or later that year. But he wasn't great, was he, against Japan? And I also noticed Kramaric. They didn't get him busy either, who's been scoring most of their goals, I think, for Croatia at this tournament. So I don't know, Joe. What do you think about Croatia's chances? I mean, if they win this, then semi-finals again from a Croatia team that some of us would have thought would have probably kind of not aged well.
Yeah, Zlatko Dalic has done well with this squad. They seem to be coming towards the end of their cycle, a bit like Belgium, I'd say.
Yeah.
But everyone expected Belgium to still do well, and we're quite shocked at them. For me, I wasn't that surprised. I expected them to get out of the group, but I wasn't that surprised that when I was at their performances, Belgium, because they're an aging side. And I think Croatia are getting to that point now where they're in a bit of a transition period. The likes of Modric and Kramaric and that lot are getting a bit older, so they're not going to be performing. They're not going to have the legs, the energy for the whole tournament. And then they got, is it Lavia? Is it? I can never pronounce the forwards now, so I do apologise for butchering that name. Bigoy will probably be in the comments in a minute having a massive go.
It's called Bajoin.
Bajoin, yeah. Sorry, another name that I've butchered. Yeah, they're trying to feed it through the youngsters as well. I think so. I think Zlatko Dalic has overachieved this tournament with the Croatians. It massively overachieved last time, getting them to the final. I don't think he was in charge last time, was he? I think it was a different manager.
What, in the last World Cup?
Yeah.
Tadic. Yeah, no, it was still him.
It was still him, was it?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think he's done well this time around, especially with the squad aging. I think they've hit their peak last time around, and I think to get them to the quarterfinals again this time is a pretty solid return.
Okay, then, what are your predictions, Joe?
I think this game Brazil will win this one.
I think. Okay.
Sorry. Do you want a score or?
Oh, whatever you. Yeah, go on then.
I've got 2-0 Brazil.
2-0 Brazil. Yeah, I expect Brazil to win this. I think for Croatia, this is the furthest they'll get, and I think they'd still look at it as a good World Cup, but obviously won't be as hyped up as when they got to the final 4 years ago. Okay, the match of the day, I would say, for tomorrow, come tomorrow night, 7 p.m. kickoff UK time, is Louis van Gaal's Orange Army. Sorry, let me say that in a Louis van Gaal voice. Louis van Gaal's Orange Army. Up against Argentina, of course, Lionel Messi. Could this be his last World Cup match for Argentina? You do feel like every match that comes by now at this World Cup, it could be Messi's last at a World Cup. But who knows? I mean, they did lose to the Saudis, as Joe mentioned, but they've recovered very nicely. They've won every game since. Had a moment or two against Australia. I know they were 2-0 up, but Australia nearly came back and could have forced it to extra time if it wasn't for that Martinez save in the last kick of the game, which could have seen them go to extra time. Netherlands, I must admit, I had USA to beat them back on Saturday, but the Dutch looked good. They did two similar goals where they pulled it back into the penalty area, and then we even saw Daley Blind score. Now, I'm sorry to the US, but if you let Daley Blind score, you know you've had a bad day. Not that I've got anything against him. As a Man United fan, I love Daley Blind, but he's not a goal scorer. But it was good to see that the Netherlands still there. They've never won the World Cup, Joe. Could they do it this time? Louis van Gaal, you know, the story of his treatment and his cancer that he discovered earlier this year, maybe that is motivating him and his players to bring it home for the first time.
Yeah, and as we know, the Dutch like to play sexy football, as they say. That's my impression of Dutch accent. Apologies, how terrible that may have sounded. I think they've done well. I think, like you said, I think there must be an element now with Louis van Gaal, with his cancer diagnosis early on in the year. I think that is driving the Dutch national team forward, and is making them play their hearts out for Van Gaal. And he's quite an emotional bloke, as you know, from his time at Manchester United, where he was trying to ask for the fans to get behind them a lot. And was he in his third spell as the Dutch national team manager? They did well in 2014 in Brazil when he was in charge there. Got to the semi-final, I believe, wasn't it? Against Argentina.
Yeah, funny. Yeah, so, of course, revenge for Louis tomorrow, you could say.
And they've played, like you said, some good football during this tournament. Cody Gakpo looks absolute quality. There was a lot of hype about him going into this tournament. A lot of pressure on the young lad, but he seems to have taken it all in stride and gone forward. Van Dijk's been okay at the back. He's not been in the greatest forms going into this tournament for Liverpool, but I think he's done okay at the back there for them as well. And like you said, the experience of Daley Blind at the back as well has been key for the Dutch, I think, as well. It'll go under the radar with Blind's age and that lot, but I think he's done quite well. With Argentina, slow start. Shock defeat to Saudi Arabia. Didn't see that one coming. They haven't looked convincing throughout the tournament, but they're still getting their results. And Lionel Messi is still putting out performances, and he overtook Maradona as the highest score in Argentinian, in World Cup history. So that's another stat to add to Lionel Messi's repertoire of footballing moments.
Yeah.
I think if he's on it, he's the key for Argentina. If the Dutch could keep Lionel Messi quiet, then I think it'd be a long afternoon for the Argentinians.
I think Van Dijk said that when you defend against Lionel Messi, even if you're up front for like a set piece for Netherlands or something like that, he said in his experience, Lionel Messi's always that guy that's sitting in a corner somewhere looking over you. It's that scary to go up against. But yeah, I agree with you about Argentina. I've not been convinced. I think maybe that Saudi Arabia defeat has kicked them off the edge a little bit, even though they went into the tournament 36 games unbeaten, which is tremendous form going into a World Cup. But at the end of the day, you've got to lose a game at some point. You can't keep that record forever, even if you're Arsenal. When it came to the Invincibles, but I've got this big feeling the Dutch might do it. I don't know why. I just feel like they surprised me against the US. I thought they played a lot better than I expected them to. And as you say, Joe, Cody Gakpo has been having fun at this World Cup finals. I don't know why. I just feel like this could go into extra time and penalties. But I'm not sure who's going to win. But do you think, Joe, that maybe for Argentina, because they're on straight after Brazil, and I'm sure they'll keep an eye on the match there, because they know that Argentina could potentially face Brazil in the semi-finals. So even if Brazil win, that should be an extra motivation for them to go meet them there.
Oh, they'll definitely keep an eye on it. The talk to the media will be, because they'll be asked in the press conferences pre-game, and they'll say, "Nah, we're not interested in focusing on ourselves." But of course, they're going to keep an eye on it.
Yeah, right.
They'll want a chance for that derby in the semi-final and a chance to end Brazil's search for that sixth crown. They'll definitely be up for that, the Argentinians.
Definitely. What are you going for?
I think it'll go to extra time, and I'm going to go for, only because I want this as a semi-final, a 2-1 Argentina win.
Oh, so Netherlands. I'm going to go for a Netherlands win. I think that this will be the end of the road for Lionel Messi for Argentina. But the Netherlands really have to be on it for this one. They did what they had to do against the US, but can they do it against Argentina? Not been that to be honest with you, I think we got two teams who just haven't been that convincing, and someone's got to win. But I don't think it's going to be a one-away favourite. So that is Netherlands v Argentina, and then of course Saturday, the final day of the quarterfinals, starts off at 3 p.m. UK time between Morocco and Portugal. Hakimi with that lovely Panenka penalty to take them to their first ever quarterfinals, while Portugal, wow, what a performance against Switzerland. Without Cristiano Ronaldo, he was the star man on the bench, not on the pitch, while Ramos went in there and scored a hat-trick like it's nothing. Absolutely. I mean, what a story. You couldn't write it. The moment Ronaldo's not starting, your replacement scores a hat-trick in his first start for Portugal. Quite incredible. Joe, Portugal, to me, played the other night to go, we don't need Ronaldo. We can do this ourselves. And when you look at who they've got, like even Rafael Leao didn't even start and came on and scored. And then you've got Bruno Fernandes up there, Ramos up front. This João Felix as well. I think he looks great in this Portuguese team compared to his time at Atletico Madrid. Are Portugal a team that could actually go on to win the World Cup?
That's a big question. I haven't been convinced by him throughout the tournament, but that last game against Switzerland,
until that last one, yeah.
They did look different, and they look a completely different side without Cristiano Ronaldo. To me, they look more of a threat, and that's something, a sentence I never thought I'd ever say. I think Cristiano Ronaldo's just sat on the bench thinking of all that money he can get at Al Nassr if he goes to Saudi Arabia. But
he hasn't signed it yet, though. Apparently, from what he said.
Not yet, no.
Yeah, not yet.
But they're the only club that's made an offer so far, to our knowledge.
Probably the only club that will make the offer.
But I think he's inadvertently, because I know the Portuguese FA have all denied all the rumours about the bust up and all that, but I think there's probably an element of truth to that, because there's no being dropped. Surely that's got to be some sort of truth there, but that's just speculation. We'll leave it at that. But I think that may have inadvertently fired up his teammates, and I think the young lad that come in the other night, who did you say what his name was? Sorry,
Ramos.
Ramos, that's the one. Scoring the hat trick just goes to show what the World Cup's all about. An unexpected star comes in and takes the headlines. I think they look pretty solid, but Moroccans aren't going to be easy either. Nobody gave them a chance against Spain, really. And then they pulled off the shock. They're a very compact unit, the Moroccans. They like to play, obviously, they play very defensive against Spain's tiki-taka football, and the Portuguese aren't too dissimilar in a style of play to the Spanish. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a similar game plan from Morocco.
But at least Portugal can score goals.
Yeah, that's the difference. They have got clinical forwards, just Spain just lack anything really up top, and it's cost Enrique his job, hasn't it, today? So I think with Portugal, yeah, they've got strength and depth. Whether they can go all the way is another thing. It'll be interesting to see how they do in the semi-finals, should they get through against the likes of France or England. A team that's got very strong attacking players, because they're not the best defensively, are they, the Portuguese? But
no,
I think that they probably will have too much for Morocco, sadly.
As much as I love Pepe's, well, I could say attitude. Maybe that's the wrong thing to say because of what he can be like. But in terms of his maybe character and his enthusiasm for Portugal, as much as I like him, how old is he now? 38, 39? I think to rely on that on your defence for a World Cup is probably asking too much. So maybe they're relying heavily on that forward line to get them the goals. But yeah, I'm not sure. I think the other night they certainly reminded us, Portugal were European champions 6 years ago under the same coach. Why can't they? Well, same coach of Fernando Santo. Why can't they win another trophy? But yeah, I must admit I didn't expect them to score that many against Switzerland. Switzerland have been a decent team themselves. They knocked out France at the Euros last year, but yeah, didn't really get themselves going at this tournament. From Morocco, I think the only problem I've got from Morocco, Joe, is they're quite defensive, aren't they? And I just worry that if Portugal score first, could they go and run riot and then Morocco are in trouble? Are they a team that can really fight back?
Not seeing it in an attacking sense from, have we, really?
No.
That's like you said, that's my worry, that Portugal will go straight at them on the front foot and they'll sit there with the bus part. And I'm not criticising them for doing that, because it's a success. It'd be like a League One side, with all due respect to Morocco, coming to a Premier League side. They're not going to not going to go and play expansive, fast-flowing football, because that doesn't suit them. You play to your strengths, and being compact and resolute and catching teams on the counter-attack has worked. It worked for them quite well in AFCON, and it's worked for them so far this World Cup. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it, I guess. But when you're playing against an outfit at the quality of Portugal, then there's always that nagging doubt that it might be a bit of a risk. They might have to open up. If it's 0-0 as the game goes on later on, they probably will have to open up a little bit and take those risks to try and push themselves into that semi-final.
Yeah. Who are you going to go for then? I think for me, Morocco will end it there. I don't think they'll become the first African team to reach the semi-finals.
No, I think it'll be a Portuguese win. Gotta agree.
Portugal in the semi-finals then, and being one win away from seeing Ronaldo in a World Cup final on the bench. Anyway, let's move on to the final one, the one that we're most excited about and probably most nervous about. England, the European finalists of last year, up against the world champions of France. Joe, it's one of those, isn't it? Because we've had such a gap between that Senegal win and this game coming up. I do feel for Southgate and the coaching staff, where they've got a lot of thinking time now of what they should do ahead of Saturday night's game. But also, the more that I think about it, the more I'm thinking, instead of us being fearful of them, we should make it that they should be more fearful of us when we look at our squad.
Yeah, and the mind games have already started, haven't they, with Mbappe missing training, but then he was in the recovery session, and then England have had a few players missing, haven't they? Declan Rice has returned to train today after his illness, and Callum Wilson's out, was out of training in the week. So the mind games have started from both camps. Really, it's interesting because a lot of talk has been, will England go to 5 at the back to counteract Kylian Mbappe and France's attack? But the problem is, you do that, you're inviting the pressure, and you're going to be giving the France midfield time of ball.
We're better than that.
We need to just stick with our game and stick with what's been working, which is the formation that we've had. I think you stick with the same midfield as last week. I know that not everyone's a big Jordan Henderson fan, but there was debate on the Let's Talk Sport WhatsApp group of whether he was doing a good job last week. He was in there to mop up. That's what he was in there for, and he was in there to add solidity alongside Declan Rice because the Senegalese midfield had legs, and I think he did a fairly decent job. He did get a goal as well, a very rare England goal, and I think if him and Rice sitting with Jude going forward, I think midfield's fine. And if they don't play Endo, you got the likes of Calvin Phillips who can come in and Mason Mount. But I think Mason Mount's, he's not had a poor tournament, but he's not really lived up to expectations this tournament. So I think,
I don't rate him personally, but I would never have him in my starting lineup.
I wouldn't have him. I think I'd say name the same lineup as last week because that's the one that got the job done last week quite convincingly in the end. It was a slow start in the end against Senegalese, but once we got into the groove of things, they couldn't really cope with us, could they? And I think that's the thing. I think we need to attack France and go on the front foot rather, because I think if you sit back and invite the pressure, then eventually the likes of Mbappe or Giroud, or if they have Griezmann on, I know Griezmann was more a bench player, but the attacking talents are eventually going to take one of those opportunities, and you can't afford to give them too many times and too many chances inside that penalty area. I think they need to be on the ball, England, to quote a England song. I think it was Anton Deck that did that one. But they need to be straight on it, really, England. They need to be on the front foot. They need to bring the game to France and show them no fear, because I think when you show too much respect to the opposition, then that's going to cost you. And I think that's been the problem in other tournaments. And I think if you look at the way we played last summer in the final of the Euros, we got that on the front foot early on against Italy. We scored that goal, but then we sat back.
Yeah.
And that ended up costing us.
We should have carried on.
Yeah, we should have gone for the second, the third, and killed it off early doors. And I think that's what England need to try and do. They need to try and go forward, attack France early on, get a goal, try and get a second one, settle it down, and then see what happens. France are still going to create chances in that scenario, but if you can get a goal early on and settle the nerves, then it'll be good for the England side.
I do think, like, if you look at England's pattern at this World Cup so far, when we score that first goal, the goals come straight after. You know, against Iran, once we finally got the first goal from Jude Bellingham, that was it. They controlled the game. The Wales game, literally moments after we scored the first goal, Foden then scored. And then look what happened with Senegal. We just took over the moment we scored the first goal. I really hope Southgate doesn't turn to 5 at the back. I don't mind if they do that, if they try and defend a 2-0 lead or something like that. I get that with a few minutes to go, but don't invite it. My God, at the end of the day, we're against the best team, and well, okay, a lot of people disagree, but on paper they are. They won the last World Cup, so we gotta respect that in a way, and not take the mick and think we can just defend all the time against one of the best strikers in the world in Kylian Mbappe, and then one of the most awkward strikers in the world of Olivier Giroud. You can't underestimate those two, but I do just think that the first goal is so important between these two. And I am very confident that if England can continue this pattern that they've done, get that first goal, and I honestly think we could be having them on their knees. To be honest, I really do. We've got Upamecano, who's a great centre back, but my word, that man makes mistakes. He's shown that at Bayern Munich this season. Varane, great centre back as well, but as we know, he can have his moments with his knee. He can get injured quite easily. Hugo Lloris makes his mistakes at Tottenham. I think we've got, there's a back line there that are great, but a bit of a problem as well. So we'll see what happens, but I'm very confident all of a sudden about England. My only worry is what you've said, like the Italy game. Please go for it. Don't just score the first goal and just defend and hope that we can hold on to it, go on and score more goals and put the game to bed. Because I feel like this is the game for me, Joe, where actually Gareth Southgate hasn't actually beaten a big team yet at a major tournament. I know people can say the Germany result from the Euros last year, but let's be honest, look at that Germany team now. They couldn't even get out the groups. That's like a rebuilding. That looks like a team in rebuilding process right now that just don't look very good. And I don't really count that. When we got to the World Cup semis, we let's be honest, we beat Colombia on penalties. Could have been anyone's. We beat Sweden, which we should beat Sweden. Let's be honest. And then the moment we go up against Croatia, we ballsed it up. We were 1-0 up, and that's another one like the Italy game where we couldn't do it at the end. So I really feel like for Southgate, he's got to prove himself to beat one of the big teams. And as we already know, if our prediction is right with Portugal, we'll have to face Portugal in the semi, then Brazil or Argentina potentially in the final. It's not going to be easy. And I keep thinking that whoever wins this tie, though, I think could win the World Cup. What are you thinking?
Whoever wins this tie, the momentum's definitely with them, isn't it? Let's be honest. I think I before the tournament started, I had England going out at the quarterfinals to France. That was before the tournament started. And it's very rare that I want myself to be wrong. Very rare.
I hope you are.
But this is one of the few scenarios where I actually hope I'm wrong. I think, like you said, it's all about that first goal tomorrow. And I think whoever wins this game, the momentum will definitely be with them. I think whoever wins this one would have, because if you look at the Portuguese, they're not great defensively, as you said.
No.
So I think they could have Portugal defensively there. The French haven't been great defensively really this tournament.
No.
Conceded a goal in every game, I think, if memory serves me correctly.
Yeah, and they lost to Tunisia as well in that final group game.
So I think, whoever wins this game will have the momentum going with them. And I think I could see either side beating Portugal or Morocco and making it to that final.
Wow.
Question is, can France be the first team since, I'm trying to remember who it was now. Was it Germany, that won back-to-back World Cups?
No, I think Uruguay are the only team to do it, aren't they?
Is it Uruguay, is it?
I think so. I might be wrong. Because I don't know, I'll have to check that. I can't remember. But I mean...
France is looking to be the first one in a long time to win it anyway.
I just don't think France have got the strength to win the tournament. I think they can get far still, but I just don't think they can win it. I don't know. The more I think about it, the harder it is to predict who's going to win it. But I do think England are there to do it. They've had 2 tournaments now, and they've got far in both of them under Southgate. Can they finally... we got to the semi, the World Cup, got to the final of the Euros. Can we just go one more now to have a trophy in the cabinet? It would be the best Christmas present that no one else can get me, that Gareth Southgate can get me come 18th of December. It'd be a nice early Christmas present, wouldn't it, Joe? A week before the actual big day.
Oh, it'd be beautiful, wouldn't it?
It would be.
Absolutely beautiful. Ending 56 years of hurt for the men's game. For the men's
game, yeah.
20 weeks of hurt if you class the women's game.
Brilliant. Anyway, I think... actually, no, wait. Before we wrap up, what's your actual prediction then? I'm going to go... I've had this in my head for a while now. I'm going to go for England 3, France 2.
Ooh. I'm going to say 1-1 draw. And it'll go to penalties.
Oh...
But I'm not going to say anything else. I'll leave it at that.
I do. We can rely on Pickford on penalties. That we do know from our last 2 penalty shootouts, from what I can remember. I know we didn't win the Euro final penalty shootout, but Pickford saved 2, so he can do it.
Yeah, the only time you hear me shout the words "Yes, Jordan Pickford,"
from a Liverpool fan's perspective. Well, anyway, that is pretty much our preview and build up to the World Cup quarterfinals and our predictions. Do you agree with our predictions, or do you have different predictions? Why not share them in the comments below? And while you're at it, click that subscribe button to Let's Talk Sport. My thanks to Joe Stanley and to you guys at home. Thanks for watching, and bring on the quarterfinals.